Alright guys, welcome to RC Mojo and some more Tamiya MF-01X. Last time we built the rear gearbox, which means we're on to step 8, the steering servo. Now, I'm building with a high-tech servo. I found one of the spline bits seemed to fit okay, but when I had the truck on its wheels though, it slipped. I changed it for a servo with Futaba splines which fit perfectly, so Futaba or Savox would probably be ideal. Some of the Hobby King specials use Futaba splines too, just something to keep in mind. Okay then, we need some bits for the servo saver assembly, a couple of the brass ball ends, we need to find a screw that fits the servo, there's a neat table at the bottom, in this case it's going to be one of the self-tappers. From this tree we need the servo saver C-spring, a boss that fits the servo, and a little spacer. The arm we get from another parts tree. It's longer than the white ones, it's also a lot less flexible. The two brass ball ends get fitted to the arm, pretty straightforward, just don't over tighten them, they only just need to be bottomed out. Now we need the servo to be centered. You can, as it says in the instructions, connect up your radio gear, ESC, battery, but it's much easier just to use a servo tester. With it centered, fit the boss as per the instructions. With the servo horizontal and the splines on the left, the lug for the spring wants to be at the bottom, or as close as you can. The C-spring slides over the top. If you have any trouble getting it on, a flat blade screwdriver can be handy just to open it up a little bit. The arm slots into the spring and the plastic spacer drops in the top. Simple. To hold it all together, the selected screw goes down the middle. I did find the screws were all just a little bit short, only threading in a turn or so I replaced it with a similar screw that's a few millimeters longer. A quick test? Oh, not bad. The balls collide with the servo body on the right, but I've got a feeling when it's in the truck it won't need to move that far. But we'll find out later. Right, step 9. Steering linkages, and they're ball-ended. Nice. We need the two rods. These aren't turnbuckles as both threads go the same way, but plenty good enough. Pop a folded bit of card in some pliers, grip the centre of the rod and fit a ball socket. You need the card so you don't scrape the coating off the rod. Being steel, it'll go rusty. Fit another ball socket on the other end and compare it with the actual size diagram in the manual. Of course, being the steering, we need two of them. Now they can be popped onto the servo saver. Nice. Step 10. The servo mounts, which of course means we'll need the servo mount off its parts tree. We also need 4 washers and 4 self-tappers. There's 2 lengths to choose from, which one will depend on the next bit. With the servo sat on the mount, the top surface of the mount should be 24 millimeters from the top of the servo saver. This is to make sure the servo saver clears the bottom of the chassis and the linkages line up with the holes in the chassis. This servo is a bit short, so we'll need some of the shims. I reckon the thin shims will do it, they just go in under the servo lugs. When using the thin shim, the manual wants us to use the short screws. Pop all 4 of the screws in with a washer under the heads, do them up just short of the servo so it can still move, then hold the servo so it's right in the middle of the mount and tighten them the rest of the way. If we measure again, we are pretty much spot on. Nice! Step 11. Looks like we're fitting the servo. Like before, we have a choice of lengths for the long machine screws depending on the use of spacers. We also need a couple of the self-tappers. We'll probably need some of the spacers, they're on the same tree that the other spacers were on, but I'll leave them on there for now. The last bit is half the chassis, which is also part of the front gearbox casing. Oh, there's also the battery mount bit, but we'll deal with that after we've got the servo in. The servo slides into its slot in the chassis and the posts on the end of the mount go into some slots. The idea is to get the servo saver central on the chassis. The screw should be right in the middle. Right now it's not. It's not far off though, so I think the small spacer will do the job. The spacer sits on the end of the posts and fits into a slot in the chassis. It's a bit of a pain trying to get it all in. I've seen people use just a spot of grease on the spacer to stop it dropping off. Install the correct length screws for your setup. Remember, these are machine screws into plastic. They'll be quite easy to strip the threads, so be careful. If we check the bottom of the chassis, we can see the servo is bang on right in the middle. Perfect. The height is correct too, so it should line up perfectly when we get to installing the rest of the steering. Okay, last bit for step 11 is to fit the battery mount. It's made from the soft plastic. It's got a bit of give in it, which is good when you're trying to absorb force and not transmit it directly to the chassis. It lines up perfectly with the holes in the chassis, as you would expect from a Tamiya. It's held on with 2 self-tappers from the inside. The plastic is soft, so don't over-tighten. You know, maybe I should just put "don't over-tighten" at the top of the video. I think I'd probably say it at least once per step. It's important though, you can really screw up a part completely if you're not careful. Anyway, that'll have to do for today, I'm afraid. We've finished bag A, so next time we'll be going on with bag B. Should be fun. Thanks for watching. If you liked, leave a like. Sub if you haven't. Bye guys.